Welcome back, everyone, to today's Explainer. I am super excited to dive into a topic that is literally reshaping the entire business world. Today, we're looking at how modern strategic planning has evolved way beyond just, making a quick profit. We're going to explore the absolute necessity of integrating sustainability and corporate social responsibility into organizational strategy, and how doing this is actually the modern engine for long-term value creation. Let's get right into it. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll be covering the new business landscape, contrasting sustainability with CSR, walking through a strategic integration framework, looking at how to measure impact with ESG, exploring real-world value creation, and finally, wrapping up with some future trends. All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the new business landscape. So think about the dramatic shift we've seen in the 21st century business environment. The old rules of strategy, the ones that focused almost exclusively on financial performance, they simply don't cut it anymore. Today's stakeholders, and by that I mean your customers, investors, governments, and your own employees, they expect organizations to actively tackle massive global challenges. We are talking about major issues here: climate change, income inequality, resource depletion, human rights. Organizations that actually integrate sustainability into their strategic planning are proving to be way more competitive, a lot more resilient, and ultimately more profitable in the long run. It's really not an optional side project anymore. It's absolutely central to survival. Which brings us to Section 2, Sustainability versus CSR. Now, before we go building a strategy, we need to get our core terms straight. Sustainability and CSR get thrown around interchangeably all the time, but they have very distinct meanings and functions. Let's start with this foundational definition of sustainability, because it really sets the stage for everything else. At its core, sustainability is fundamentally about balance and foresight. It's the practice of meeting our current needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. You might recognize that phrasing. It was actually popularized decades ago by the United Nations in their 1987 Brundtland Report. But even though it has deep historical roots, this exact philosophy is so much more relevant to corporate survival and strategic planning today than it ever was back then. To be genuinely sustainable, an organization has to balance three core pillars all at the same time. You've got environmental protection, think reducing carbon emissions; social responsibility, like ensuring fair labor practices; and economic prosperity, which is ensuring long-term financial viability. It's like a three-legged stool. You can't just sacrifice one for the others if you actually want to create lasting value. Now, shifting gears to corporate social responsibility, or CSR. Archie B. Carroll developed this incredibly useful framework that outlines 4 levels of responsibility. Down at the base, you have economic responsibilities. You have to be profitable to exist, right? Just above that are legal responsibilities. You absolutely must obey the law. But it doesn't stop there. Modern organizations have to step up to ethical responsibilities, which means doing what's right even when it's not legally required. And finally, at the top, philanthropic responsibilities, where you're actively contributing back to society. So when we put these two concepts head to head, the difference really becomes clear. CSR is often very community-focused, it's about stakeholder accountability, and it often revolves around voluntary initiatives. Sustainability, on the other hand, is a fully embedded, future-oriented, long-term strategic engine. A good way to think about it is that CSR is just one component of your much broader, operations-wide sustainability effort. Let's move right along to Section 3, Strategic Integration Framework. Okay, so how do we actually pull this off in the real world? Let's walk through a practical example using a local Canadian auto parts manufacturer. They start with the first 4 steps of our framework. Step 1, they analyze the external environment. For them, that means looking really closely at upcoming Canadian climate regulations and energy costs. Step 2, they assess their internal capabilities. Do they even have the roof space or the capital to pull off renewable energy? Step 3, they establish a clear vision. Maybe they want to be the most environmentally responsible parts manufacturer in their entire province. And then Step 4, they set their objectives. But for Step 4, they can't just be vague. They need SMART objectives: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Our Canadian business isn't just saying, hey, we want to do better. No, they are setting a hard target to reduce carbon emissions by 30% within 5 years, alongside another target to boost workforce diversity by 20%. This exact level of precision is what turns a nice wish into an actual strategic mandate. From there, they roll right into steps 5, 6, and 7. They develop a strategy, let's say cost leadership driven by sustainability, and then they actually implement it. In our story, implementation looks like installing a massive solar array on their factory roof and maybe creating some educational scholarships for disadvantaged students in their community. Finally, they hit step 7, which is rigorous measurement and evaluation to see if what they did actually worked. And that leads us perfectly into section 4, measuring impact and ESG. Speaking of measurement, how do modern organizations actually track all this? And how do external folks evaluate them? Well, today's investors and analysts lean heavily on ESG criteria. That stands for environmental, social, and governance metrics. This works hand in hand with John Elkington's famous triple bottom line, measuring success based on people, planet, and profit. Basically, ESG gives you the hard, quantifiable data you need to evaluate an organization's true health and figure out its exposure to future risks. Because at the end of the day, the most crucial point is measurable impact. For our Canadian manufacturer, slapping those solar panels on the roof wasn't just a fun PR stunt. It literally resulted in a massive 40% drop in electricity use. That is huge. It clearly demonstrates economic sustainability because it dramatically lowers their operating cost over time while perfectly syncing up with their environmental goals. It's a total win-win. All right, let's jump into section 5, real-world value creation. Let's scale things up a bit from our small Canadian business and look at how this exact same framework creates incredible long-term value for global titans. Take Patagonia, for example. They lean heavily into environmental activism and sustainable sourcing. I mean, their famous Don't Buy This Jacket anti-consumerism campaign, it actually sparked a massive spike in sales from fiercely loyal customers. Then you have Unilever. They rolled out a sustainable living strategy that totally transformed their operational efficiency and skyrocketed their global brand image. And of course, there's Tesla, a company that literally built its entire core business model from the ground up on the concept of carbon reduction and renewable energy. Now, let's be real for a second. Integrating this kind of strategy definitely has its hurdles. It is not always smooth sailing. Leaders have to navigate some pretty steep initial costs for green technologies. They frequently struggle with trying to quantify social impacts. They deal with internal pushback from employees who just don't want to change the way they work. And, crucially, they have to push back against impatient investors who are constantly demanding short-term financial returns at the expense of long-term stability. Finally, we arrive at section 6, future trends and conclusion. As we wrap up our explainer today, we really need to ask, what does the future of strategic planning look like? Where is all of this going? Well, we are moving incredibly fast toward a circular economy. This is where products are designed from day one for reuse, recycling, and remanufacturing, totally disrupting the old take, make, and dispose model. We're also seeing an absolute surge in net zero commitments, rapid clean energy innovation, and the massive integration of artificial intelligence. AI is going to be heavily utilized to track complex supply chains, eliminate waste, and optimize resource use at levels we honestly couldn't have imagined a decade ago. I want to leave you with a final, slightly provocative thought to ponder as we close out. What is the true, long-term cost to your business if you completely ignore sustainability in your strategic planning today? Because make no mistake, the landscape has permanently shifted. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. If you found this helpful, please make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more diploma-level deep dives. See you next time.